the organic food actually had more of these persistent organic pollutants in it. So it is not enough to eat organic chicken and beef, and even wild deer, wild animals are still exposed to these pollutants that are everywhere, and they bioaccumulate them too. Studies vary on those. If they're near a populated area, they get more. If they're really remote, they may get slightly less. But areas like Maui has a history of heptachlor use. Heptachlor is an organochlorine pesticide that was heavily sprayed on pineapples before it was banned because it got into the dairy products. They fed the pineapple tops that were sprayed to the dairy cows, and then people eating the dairy products on Maui were getting high levels of those. It came to a point where the women's breast milk was unsafe because of the concentration of these pollutants in their breast milk from eating dairy products. It's a sad thing that these are in our environment, but this is the world we live in, and we can avoid them. So the trick is not to eat organic meat, whether it's chicken or beef or pork or fish. You're going to need to actually not eat them if you want to avoid these contaminants. And it is your choice, and I understand it can be a difficult choice. There are many alternative meats out there. There's a Gardein brand fish fillets and frozen sections that actually is quite delicious and can kind of substitute for fish if you're in the mood for that, but it doesn't have organochlorine pesticides. May not be the healthiest thing on the planet, but at least it's not going to be killing off your brain cells. Mercury is another contaminant in fish that is a neurotoxin, and the biggest source of mercury for people in America is, well, tuna fish, typically. That's where people get the most mercury. Other large fish also have a lot of mercury in them. The methyl mercury is the most toxic form of mercury, although the ethyl mercury is also quite toxic. Methyl mercury binds to cysteine, and then it can be transported right into the brain. And exposure to mercury can damage not only the function of where we make dopamine in the substantia nigra, but also into the striatum where our movements are initiated. Also, the mercury can damage the mitochondria, the energy factories in our cell, and most strikingly, lower dopamine production. Now, here's another contaminant that's found principally in seafood. It's made by a type of algae, and it's beta-N-methylamino-L-alanine, BMAA. This was found to be concentrated in certain foods in the Pacific, and people who lived on islands where these foods were eaten and they ate a lot of this BMAA had extremely high rates of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, neurological disorder, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It's made by cyanobacteria in the seawater, and it's definitely concentrated in crab, shrimp, fish, or shellfish, pretty much sea life. Brains from Parkinson's disease patients had very high levels of this BMAA, even when compared to Alzheimer's and ALS patients, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. It can damage and kill dopamine-producing cells and increase Lewy bodies. I'll mention Lewy bodies here in a few minutes. They're associated with damaged cognition, which is possible to be accentuated in Parkinson's disease sometimes. The BMAA has a structural similarity to glutamate. Glutamate is the principal excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain. Too much glutamate is damaging to the brain and also damaging to our peace of mind, principally through excitotoxicity, point 2, that can wind up killing brain cells. It damages the mitochondria, so energy production can be less. When energy production in a dopamine-producing cell is disrupted, that cell can die. Then you have one less cell. You don't want that. Can damage and kill dopamine-producing cells and the misfolding in the Lewy bodies. What can you do? You could avoid crab, shrimp, fish, or shellfish. I certainly do. After learning all of this, I simply wouldn't want to eat them. I understand that they can be tasty and all that, but we have to protect ourselves and our loved ones. Now, harmane's interesting. It's this study in neurotoxicology is really good. They looked at elevated blood harmane levels, and in the graph you see from top to bottom in Parkinson's disease, harmane levels were higher even at the lowest in Parkinson's disease than they were at the highest in normal people without Parkinson's disease. So definitely higher in Parkinson's disease. What harmane does and norharmane, they increase tremors. There's another tremor. Parkinson's disease is associated with movement tremors. So if you're tremoring while you're moving, then this is a Parkinson's disease symptom. However, there's another tremor, essential tremor, where you're tremoring when you're not moving. This is very, very common. Some of you listening may have essential tremor. Harmane's a big contributor to the tremors in both, and you can avoid it. Beer, number one, has the highest amount of harmane, and cigarettes, high exposure to harmane, and the exposure is very bad. And then there's pork loin, broiled beef, cheese, bacon, and chicken. So if you look at the harmane in those are all very high levels of harmane. Another reason why you want to avoid these foods outside of the contaminants that are damaging, both killing off the cells that make dopamine and killing off the enzymes that make our own dopamine from levodopa. Oh, I want to mention the home use of pesticides can also increase the risk of Parkinson's disease. This study in occupational environmental medicine showed that pesticide use in the home or on food increased the risk of Parkinson's disease. Also, organophosphate insecticides doubled the risk in the home. Now, organophosphate pesticides are pesticides that they work. Okay, I'm going to explain this. Stay with me on this. It's slightly technical for a minute. When our brain cells communicate, they often use acetylcholine as a neurotransmitter. So one cell will transmit acetylcholine to trigger the next cell. Now, that acetylcholine is eaten up by an enzyme so that it doesn't keep triggering the next cell. Okay, it wants to trigger it once, but not over and over and over. Well, these organophosphate insecticides eliminate that enzyme so that the brain cells keep triggering over and over the next one. So if that happens in an insect, its lungs and muscles contract and can't ever relax again, so it dies. Now, there are non-toxic alternatives to using pesticides in your home. We live in Maui, and there's lots of insects around here. And so we use things like boric acid and cinnamon. Ants really don't like cinnamon, so a little bit of actually just powdered cinnamon stops the ants in their tracks and they go away. Boric acid is great for cockroaches, and there are non-toxic alternatives you might want to explore because the home use of pesticides is also a problem with Parkinson's disease. Now, I've talked about a lot of foods that make Parkinson's disease more likely, increase the risk, and increase the progression. What about foods that are better, that help, that reduce the progression and reduce the risk? Soy genistein is one of these foods. Here's some edamame that's cooked in the shell soybeans, usually available organically produced. And I do recommend only organic soy products because of the heavy pesticide use that's common on them. But the organic edamame would be an excellent source, a nice whole food with plenty of fiber and protein and all the good things. Soy genistein treatment protected the dopamine producing neurons from injury. Now, I asked you to remember tyrosine hydroxylase, and here it is again. Genistein restored tyrosine hydroxylase. Remember, when tyrosine, an amino acid, gets into the brain, it's made into levodopa, the same levodopa you may take as a drug, and then that's made into dopamine. So by restoring the tyrosine hydroxylase, you're allowing your own body to make its own levodopa. It helps to restore dopamine in the striatum, so it helps the dopamine get to its end in the striatum that initiates movement. Organic soy is a good source of genistein and diastein. They're both anti-inflammatories. They're very helpful also with Alzheimer's disease and keeping your brain sharp to reduce neuroinflammation. I've written several papers on that. By the way, if you're interested in my academic papers, if you go to my website, drsteveblake.com, just under the pictures, you'll see a recent research, and they're all free open source, and they're a little difficult to read, as science typically is, but I do my best to make it understandable. And you can read about neuroinflammation in Parkinson's disease and also in Alzheimer's disease and how to prevent it. Sesame seeds contain sesamin, which is a heat-activated antioxidant. Very unique. Tahini is shown here, made out of sesame seeds. Delicious and very rich in calcium. Sesamin has a dopamine enhancing effect, increases this biosynthesis of this tyrosine hydroxylase. Remember the one enzyme I want you to remember today. Tyrosine hydroxylase, so that can then convert tyrosine into levodopa to increase your dopamine in your brain, make your movement smoother, your tremors less. It also has an antioxidant effect. So by increasing superoxide dismutase, it is an antioxidant that protects brain cells from injury and death. Now, that's something that the drugs used for Parkinson's disease don't do. They don't protect the brain cells. This neuroprotection and anti-inflammatory action, I think, is really a nice side effect of sesame seeds and sesamin. Carotenoids are the colorful pigments in foods. Carotenoids can include beta-carotene, the orange pigment in carrots, and alpha-carotene and beta-cryptoxanthin, and there's really quite a few carotenoids. Some of them can be converted to vitamin A, but all of them are antioxidants, and they are fat-soluble antioxidants, okay? This is important because the fat-soluble antioxidants are able to protect our brains, the fatty areas that are damaged. They looked at Parkinson's patients, and they found that these carotenoids were lower. Well, that's an indication that the people were not eating enough colorful fruits and vegetables. Those with more carotenoids had fewer symptoms. Makes you think that if you ate more colorful fruits and vegetables, you might have less symptoms. Higher levels of the carotenoids may reduce both the risk of and the progression of Parkinson's disease. Bottom line, highlighted in yellow on the bottom of this slide, eat plenty of organic fruits and vegetables. That's not so hard to do. Hopefully you have some favorite fruits and vegetables and you can eat even more of those. Flavonoids are found in fruits, especially berries are very rich in flavonoids. They did a big study, and in Biomolecules was reported 130,000 people they followed for 20 years. And they were 40% less likely to develop Parkinson's disease if they consumed more flavonoids. A lot of the common fruits, berries, apples, oranges, all of the fruits have these protective flavonoids. There are a larger class called polyphenols, and that includes flavonoids and many others. And under flavonoids, there's also a lot of subcategories of flavonoids. They're all antioxidant, they're all good for you, they're all found in whole fruits and vegetables. These flavonoid-rich foods protect dopamine neurons from oxidation, inflammation, and cell death. It's just exactly what we want. And isn't this the opposite of the animal fat that is increasing the oxidation, inflammation, and cell death of dopamine-producing cells? Here, we can have the opposite effect. Imagine the difference if someone is used to eating a lot of animal fat and very few fruits and vegetables, and they switch over. This could be good. Several reasons why the flavonoids are protective of our brain cells is they activate our own antioxidant enzymes. We have antioxidant enzymes in our body. I'll be talking about antioxidants coming up, but some antioxidants are from food, like vitamin E and vitamin C, and some antioxidants are made in our bodies to protect our bodies from oxidation and cell death. Typically, especially in the brain, superoxide dismutase and glutathione peroxidase are the two main antioxidant enzymes that protect our brain. There are others, but not as relevant in the brain. To make these work, we need certain minerals.